Hello, welcome to the Thinking in Tech podcast, a podcast about two guys that work in tech, love tech, and like to talk about tech. I'm one of your co-hosts, Dylan, and I'm here today with my other co-host, Baz.
Howdy.
And yeah, we got another great show today. We will be talking today about the historic Artemis 2 launch, and we'll also be talking about Apple's 50th birthday. Yeah, so before we get rolling, just if any of those who are watching on YouTube would be kind enough to hit the like button and subscribe if you'd like to see future episodes, and leave a comment below if you want to chat about us, about tech. We like chatting with each other. We also want to talk to you guys too, so go ahead and say hi below. And if you're listening on podcast service, feel free to follow the show for future episodes. But all right, Baz, before we get started with the news, anything interesting you've been working on lately that you want to share or talk about?
Yeah, well, when you have a passion project and you don't have any firm deliverables, you at least in my case, there's a tendency to constantly go back in and tinker with stuff that ought to have been considered done. Uh, and so uh, I have been redoing all of the video subsystems in my Apple II emulator. Um, Partly the impetus was to improve, you know, uh, the way it behaves to make it more accurate in certain respects. And, then I just remembered I had a kind of a list of little action items that I wanted to do that I've been collecting for a few months. Everything kind of in those laundry lists kind of lined up. So I'm like, all right, let's just rip this out and redo this again. So the fundamentals aren't different. It's really kind of just how things are wired together and how data flows from one stage to the next. But my people who watch my GitHub repo are probably like, "Where's he been for the last 3 weeks?" Don't worry, there's stuff coming. There's going to be a giant commit here
Ooh, awesome! Looking forward
sometime
to
next
that.
week.
So you're saying with the video settings, that's just kind of like almost like behind the scenes plumbing. Like it actually won't really look different for someone using the emulator.
It no, it in theory it won't look any different, except that there will be some things that were inconsistent. Little inconsistent behavior will no longer be that way. They'll be better. And there's some new features like the ability to turn on monochrome, uh,
Yeah, okay.
and the ability to old CRT monitors had horizontal size and position and vertical size adjustments, right? Where the effective screen area you would kind of like zoom in or zoom out depending on your preferences, and um, that's going to be a feature in the next edition where you'll be able to, I think ultimately have some slider controls to basically give you those knobs that old CRTs had.
Cool. So it's almost going outside just like the computer itself and emulating what you would run the computer on, huh?
Yeah, it's all a matter of interpretation. With the modern computer, uh, it's rectangle pixels, RGB values, and that's it. There's nothing to interpret really. With CRTs, it was all analog.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so how a particular monitor took that and just waveform and broke it into colors and brightness, as well as whether there's a border around the screen or just blank or things like that. That all could vary quite a lot depending on what monitor you had plugged in. So that's some of I'm tinkering with around the edges of some of that as well to give a lot of different retro experiences.
Very cool. Awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. You're kind of mentioned this a little bit when you first brought it up, but it's really cool when it's like a project or software that's just you work on for fun, that you own, that whenever you want to go back, you can improve it or make adjustments. Where many times at jobs I worked at, you work on something and then you turn in, it's done. And they're like, oh, wait, I want to go back and add this, or it could really use
Mm-hmm.
this. And then you have a project manager who's like, no, we're actually working on this new thing now, so just leave it alone. So
Yeah, we
it's
shipped.
not,
No, yeah, we got customer requests. We got
yeah.
other things on the roadmap.
It's so great to have that freedom when it's something that's entirely yours that you can spend as much time on it as you want
Yes.
to.
On the flip
Yeah.
side, I'm not getting paid, so
Well, awesome. Very cool. I'm looking forward to seeing more of those updates come out. I haven't played around with the emulator in a while, but I need to spin it up and play some retro games on it. Yeah, that's much cooler than anything I have been going on lately, which has been almost nothing. Just been doing my day job and doing school. I have a lot of great ideas. I have new blog posts I want to write. I won't say anything about it because like if I talk about it, I don't release it. You know, once I
oh,
finish it and
because
release it, then I'll talk about it maybe. But a tech
the
related.
the energy dissipates, right? Is so like you build up energy thinking about this concept, and then if you talk about it, it's like, oh, okay, that's all
Exactly.
released now. I don't have
Yeah.
to write it.
Exactly. So yeah, if anything comes from that, I'll share that in a future episode. But
Great.
alrighty, let's go ahead and jump into the news. So we'll start talking about Artemis 2 and the Artemis 2 mission and everything that's been going on about that last few weeks. Which I guess really the last few years, but the last few weeks was really when it the mission begun. So I think it was last week they launched from the other side of Florida from where we're at, and they started making their way to the moon. Do
Yeehaw.
yeah,
That's
yeehaw for sure. Yeah.
that's been a long time coming, right? So I'm dating myself, but I was born about 1 month after the first moon landing in '69,
Hmm.
and those images and people talking about it and things on TV, that was a pretty big part of my younger years. Besides the original Star Trek, of course, and of course those two things intertwined in popular culture quite a lot. It was interesting. It became profoundly disappointing that after 1972, it was just like, okay, we did that thing. Now we're just gonna um, nobody wants to spend money on this anymore, so we're just gonna go to the space station and back. Or
Yeah, which is
send
still
send a ship
cool,
up and
but
run some experiments and come back.
it's
Um,
different, right?
yeah, that's not how it was supposed to go in any of the science fiction books I ever read.
It's like even just as like someone watching that happen, you think, oh, this is great. Let's keep on doing, do more of it. And I had not even realized it was been like 50 years or so, or however
50,
since the last time we went anywhere near the moon. Like I knew we stopped going a
54
while
years.
ago.
Yeah,
That's crazy that it took us so long to get back there, and it's so cool to actually see humanity kind of start doing that again.
yeah. I've been waiting my whole life to buy a ticket. Right.
To the moon, right? Yeah. Yeah, but that was I think you said you didn't have a chance to see it outside. I got
No, I missed
very
it. Yeah.
I got very lucky. First off, we have a buddy in the Discord, Christian, which shout out, but he's very into probably can tell very into the mission space in general, and like I get every single message notification to me that happens in Discord on my phone. So he
Oh,
would be
okay.
like, hey, today, hey, it's gonna be an hour, go outside. So I saw that. So he helped me out making sure I'd see it. And it was like when it was originally supposed to launch, I think it was like 6:30 or so, 5:30. It was
Hmm.
literally raining really hard outside. So I was like, oh man,
Okay.
I'm not gonna be able to see this at all. And then they pushed off the launch by like 20 minutes. So I was like, maybe the clouds started kind of moving out of the way. Half this, it was like a Florida, almost a Florida summer sky. It's like half the sky looked like it was about thunderstorm, and the other
Hmm.
half was
Hmm.
like bright blue. So and it's like sprinkling rain a little bit. So I'm like, well, we just gotta try and see if we can see anything. So I get my I know we're in Sarasota, so I know Kennedy Space Center is like that way northeast. So I get my compass on my phone. It's like, okay,
Hmm.
look this way. I'm just like, I have my 2-year-old daughter out there with me, and she's like, what the heck are we doing? I'm showing her the live feed of my phone. I'm like, this is what we're looking for. They're gonna go to the moon, and she's like cool with it like for 5 minutes or so, and then it's like it takes 10 minutes for that to launch, and then another 2 minutes for us to be able to see it. So she's trying to walk back to the house. I'm like, no, look up, look up. It's gonna be here somewhere. Maybe we might see it, but also saying the expectations. We might not be able to see it because
Uh-huh.
of the weather.
Right, right.
But and it was a cool like neighborhood like event because like I had multiple neighbors start to come outside because everyone would want to see it. and then we're looking around, and I was kind of looking this direction, and then I see over here, I start to see the white line. So like we
Mm-hmm.
got to see it. It's like, and there's like a big dark cloud right next to it. So we
Right.
barely caught it, and like you can barely see anything because we're on the other side of Florida. But just to see any of it and knowing like, hey, there's humans and that's a spaceship and it's going to the moon and we're seeing it with our own eyes. That was just such a cool thing to see and a very special moment to be able to share that with my daughter as well.
Yeah, the era that both our kids are growing up in is very exciting.
Sure
And
is.
one maybe one of the reasons that I didn't make a bigger deal out of this is because um, it's almost, I don't want to say commonplace now, but they're launching stuff
Mm-hmm.
constantly out at Cape Kennedy. And I'm like, oh, I can go up there anytime and see a space launch, right? So it's one of those things where now it's so commonplace, unless I make myself, I'll never go.
I think I had that feeling right up to the point, and then like something clicked, and like I was just like more excitement around than usual. I'm like, oh, okay, I
Yeah,
like my brain almost like, wait a second, they like the launches will look similar, but this one's going to the moon. It's
yeah,
like even if
for
it's not
sure.
landing on, it's flying around it, and then that's just like that is a that day excitement thing. I was like, all right, we gotta
Yeah,
get out and try to see it.
yeah, I agree. And the other thing is different about this era compared to 50 years ago is um, I have a real feeling of permanence about
Mm-hmm.
this, right? Yeah, I don't know about NASA. NASA is it's a government agency. Politicians pull it this way, they pull it that way.
Yeah.
The missions change every 4 years, kind of nonsense. But Elon Musk is serious about this. His SpaceX company is responsible for the vast bulk of satellite launches at this point. I think Jeff Bezos wants to catch up, um, but his their tech isn't as good, and um, they did a stunt launch here recently, but if I was trusting my life to one of these things blowing up on the pad, it probably wouldn't be Blue Origin yet.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, that was well, and didn't NASA did that worked with Blue Origin,
I
and
th-
those
I think
guys
they're
got
working on.
stranded up there for 9 months.
Was that Blue Origin? Is that I
I
remember
think
that
it was.
story?
I
Yeah.
feel like it was related somehow. I don't
Yeah.
recall for sure.
And
Maybe I can be corrected in the comments.
oh, I'm sure we'll get someone very passionate if we're wrong. They'll let us know. And yeah, say what you will about the the billionaires and whatnot that own these companies and their private life and all the issues with that. The SpaceX. It's awesome that there's people who are that still love space and they're making it their mission every day to kind of improve our capabilities to get to space. So that's cool to see. And like you kind of said, there's issues when it's there's like pros and cons to it when it's being run as a government agency, but when it, having also just what basically was like a private company that they kind of have more control. If they get money, they can spend it. And
Yeah,
it's
do what
not
they
just like
want.
they don't have to
Right.
have lawmakers decide one way or another. So just having both those things kind of coexist and be able to work together and each have their own benefits. I think it's a good thing.
I agree. Thinking thinking about the differences, right? So the computing technology is vastly different than it was in 1969. The computing technology that sent people to the moon in 69 was like primitive,
Right. I feel like it's
massively
compared to a
primitive.
modern calculator a lot of the time. I feel like you hear that. Right.
Yeah, and they would calculate the trajectories and burns and orbits and all this stuff, and it was done with super antiquated stuff. There's actually some great videos on YouTube about
Hmm.
the computer in the Apollo, capsule, and people, excuse me, uh, if I remember getting one of those running again, and
Oh, like today, the guy running today? Oh, no
yeah,
way. I gotta see that
yeah,
video.
And there, people also have like emulators, I think, for that computer.
I love nerds.
But it's, and it was basically about reliability. They didn't
Yeah.
necessarily need raw performance. They needed it to be reliable. When the space shuttle came along, um, that was built on early 70s technology. Even as late as they flew it into the 2000s, it was still,
Hmm.
they didn't change anything, right? Maybe around the edges, but it had onboard computers that were less powerful than an Apple II, but there were three of them, and they were wired up where basically all three ran all the computations at the
Hmm.
same time, and the chosen action was based on a 2 out of 3 vote of these three computers. So
Interesting, huh?
so again, like, focus on, we don't want a computer to get hit by a stray cosmic ray and spit out, the wrong burn and get people killed.
Right.
So they didn't necessarily need the performance, but I can't imagine, what kind of systems are on these ships today,
Oh, did it
what's on the
right.
what's on the ground. This is how, SpaceX is landing rockets on their tail fins like the cover
Hmm.
of a 1950s sci-fi novel.
Like landing on basically boogie boards, right? Like in the
Yeah,
water. Yeah, it's
when
incredible.
when we when we were reading these books, like, okay, he read the same books I did, growing up. He's my age, um, and I always thought, this is preposterous. Like, no, why would you land a rocket like this? What's the point of landing a rocket on its tail fin? Um, well, it it lands on landing gear, and that just turns out that, maybe that's the most stable way to do it. And he did it. He implemented 1950s sci-fi book rocket technology using modern computers, right? The flight
Hmm.
systems on those things are incredibly sophisticated. They could never have done it, 60 years ago. So that's another element, I think, that makes me feel like this is for real this time.
Yeah, and it's gonna be amazing to see what hopefully the recent future will have. They're talking about, like, this is Artemis 1 was going around there without humans. Now we're having humans go around. Artemis 3, I believe the idea is to land on the moon and try to make a moon base in the next couple of years for real. We're not talking 10 to 15 years. Maybe in the future it's like a couple of years from now they're going to try doing that, and that's amazing. And yeah, it's just like I'm thinking like the with those first spaceships they would have had. Excuse me, those were like before they even like the transistor was invented, right? Like they would have had like tube-based computers in those
I
calculations.
think I'm trying to remember. Transistors were not very new. I think
Mm-hmm.
they were around,
Okay.
and they probably had some solid. They were probably mostly solid state on the.
Then I might be getting
Um,
my years a few off there from what my tech history,
at
but
at the
still just
beginning of
super
the space
early.
program, at the beginning of the space
Yeah,
program, it was
that's
probably
what
a lot of tube computers.
that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. Yeah, when they first went to the moon. Yeah. So, yeah, that's awesome to see, and it's awesome. It's just all the excitement around it. Like not to try to get too off topic for anything, but I feel like there's not a whole lot that just brings everybody together anymore these days. And this seemed like one of those events that just everybody was able to come together and be like, "That's awesome.
that's
That's
right.
cool."
This has united the flat earthers and the moon landing hoaxers.
Yep, it sure has, and it was and like back to modern day technology now we can watch a live feed of those astronauts just
Yeah,
floating around from our phone. It's so cool. And where I was back to the Discord with Christian, he gave the heads up like, hey, check on the live feed in 10 minutes, they're gonna break the record for the furthest humans have ever gone from the earth. And just to be able to like watch that happen live and these astronauts there, that was amazing. And then there's like a really heartfelt moment with one of the astronauts. I believe what it was he requested to have a crater on the moon named after his wife that unfortunately passed away of illness before. And then it's just like this really emotional moment, and you see the astronauts come together and they're just hugging and holding him, and that's like, I don't know, it's a really beautiful thing to see. So yeah,
yeah.
I can't. I think they'll become. I think they're on their way back now, back to Earth now. So I think in the next couple of days they're supposed to be back. So we'll I look forward to watching on YouTube, seeing them land and them laying in the water and getting out of that capsule, and welcome them home, and then in a couple of years, see them go back, and who knows how long they'll stay on the moon for. But it's an exciting time for space
Yeah,
exploration.
for sure. And I think you know our grandchildren will read about this in history books, and hopefully for a long time after that.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're gonna be like, they only got to the moon 50 years ago. We're on Venus, or we're on like Saturn now, or Pluto, or whatever
Right.
planet makes sense to land on. One of the moons around, was it Saturn? I think is like one you can land on. Someone's gonna make fun of me for saying land on Saturn. Alrighty. Well, let's go ahead and hop into a next kind of segment of this episode. Next news we'll be talking about Apple's 50th birthday. So happy birthday to Apple. I believe it was this month they turned 50. I didn't get the exact date, but
Oh,
earlier
well,
in the
it
month.
was their original corporate filing was April 1st, not
April
an
Fool's
April
Day. There
Fool's
you go.
joke. Yeah.
Nope. Yeah, good. That should have been an easy one to remember. But yeah, um, happy birthday, Apple. 50 years old.
Woo.
It feels like that sounds right and doesn't sound right at the same time. Like I don't know. Time's just a weird thing. But they have been a company for 50 years now, and they've basically been a big face of computing and everyday life for a lot of
Hmm.
people. I've my main computer's Apple. I have a Macintosh behind me. I'm wearing I say all the time I'm not an Apple fanboy, but I'd be as close as I can get being an Apple fanboy without being one. I'm sure other people would call me an Apple fanboy, but I do try to keep open minded. I can criticize them, but yeah, and that's the story for so many people. So many people just have their products, like their phone, like it's almost like a part of them, like like a body part. These relationship people have with these products that Apple's made,
Hmm.
and just how just ingrained they are, not even just to culture, but like humanity.
Yeah, it's been, a wild ride. And I've known of this company, basically as long as I was aware of stuff like that,
Hmm.
my whole life. My first computer was an Apple IIe. The first one I used was a Apple II Plus at the school. Um, First one I owned was a 2E, uh, and then the Mac came out, and I never bought one of those at that time, but I got to play with them at the computer store I uh, lived at half the day every day, and um, and that was amazing. And then they came out with the Apple IIgs, and I ended up buying one of those, but throughout the next 10 years they kept improving, um, and it was a lot of us had our thoughts on Apple's challenges in the early to mid 90s, when they almost went out of business. Um, it was, the story of Steve Jobs having been fired in 1985 and then coming back in, I think it was 97, after his, years in the wilderness where he created Next and then
Hmm.
Pixar,
And Pixar, yeah.
right? So, like, in the short view, like, he got kicked out of Apple in 1985, and it's like, oh, this, this guy just didn't have what it took. Was a lot of folks' impression. But then he went away, right? And he kept doing all this amazing innovation. And then when he came back to Apple, of course, he turned it from bankrupt into um, the most valuable company in the world, uh, through just sheer innovation. And I feel like this is going to be controversial to you Apple fanboys out there. I am I
Lay it out
I am
there.
a let's say a student of Apple. I'm not a fanboy because I'm happy to criticize companies even if I like some of their products. Um,
Same.
but um, I don't think Apple's had the same drive for innovation since Steve Jobs passed away.
No, I
Um,
would agree with that.
Like there should have been, he was churning out some world-changing thing every 2 years, right? The iMac, uh, the iPod. That was what
I
you
have
said. You was,
I have a
you
whole
know,
list of it right here. We can go down the line. So,
yeah.
Apple II, Macintosh, iPod, iPhone, iPad, and then like I'm trying to remember if AirPods. That's a big one. I don't remember if he was around for AirPods, but
No,
each of
those
these
are,
products
yeah.
could be. Yeah, go ahead.
I think those are relatively new.
Those
Um,
okay. Those are probably a little bit after he passed away, but like even just the 9 out of 10 of the things I just listed, each of those individual products could have like made just a giant multi-billion-dollar company just having that one product, and they have like a dozen of them. It's insane.
yeah, the Apple II invented the personal computer industry.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Like if there wasn't Apple II, if the two Steves weren't together and didn't build that, the world would probably look a lot different now. Like we probably would have gotten there one way or another, but it would have looked a lot different, I think.
Oh, for sure. And then the Mac reinvented it, right?
Hmm.
So in 1984, everyone else had stuff that looked like an Apple II. At that point, they'd caught up, and then he drops the Mac. And given forget it's early on, it was very underpowered, and there were limits to what you could do. But it was clear, right? They just revolutionized the computing industry again. And then it took Microsoft 11 years to essentially successfully clone that, right? Where they had
Hmm.
a Windows product that people actually wanted in in bulk. So, um, the guy was a genius, and I think that's the story of Apple, right? And I've been watching a lot of videos, interviews with him, and with people that worked with him. Um, and aside from him having a sort of an abrasive personality, he demanded excellence from people,
Hmm.
and he got it. Um, if you, I don't know, if you expect low results from folks, that's what you're going to get. That's just human nature to just kind of go with the flow and do what you need to do. It takes a special kind of leader to get people fired up to produce excellent work. And there may be other ways to achieve that besides what he did. I think in later years he probably had some layers to buffer him from the regular folks, but it didn't dilute the passion and the drive for excellence and innovation. I mean, the Apple products, even the ones I don't, I'm not that concerned about, like I have an Android. The Google Pixel is an excellent product, um, and it's a lot cheaper. And I tend to just destroy phones anyway, so that's what I buy. Uh, but it's an excellent product. It's well made. There's people that are using these things for 10 plus years, right? People are using 10-year-old Macs constantly. Um, I've got I've got these 45-year-old Apple IIs sitting here on the desk, and they still work perfectly.
Exactly. Yeah, that's insane. Like what
What
other
other
piece of
company's
consumer?
products
Yeah,
survive that long? So
and are
even,
still appreciated and loved 40, 50
yeah,
years later,
on
right? And
top of
have
that,
big
right?
communities that surround them and still create new software for them and new hardware, even like, add-ons to them. There's
Yeah.
nothing else like that.
It's excellence from the top to the smallest detail. Um,
Hmm.
and it's bringing together all these different, disciplines, right? It's design and quality manufacturing and paying super careful attention to the customer. Um, Not only give them what they want, but be able to get inside their minds and figure out um, what product would appeal to them that they don't even know about yet. Yeah, I think he famously said, you know, um, people don't know what they want,
Right.
right? Which doesn't he wasn't trying to be denigrating by that comment. It was about you have to be able to use your imagination
Hmm.
and figure out what people will want
you
without
can't only
them
just
having
give
seen it yet.
exactly, yeah, you can't only give them stuff that they've already seen before. You want to excite them, surprise them, and open up their ways of thinking of using things in new and different ways. And I think there's like people tend to give one person too much credit for like certain things at companies or things of that nature. But I think Steve Jobs is one of those rare instances where it's actually deserved. And Apple, what would happen to Apple if he didn't come back and invent the iPod?
They,
Like
they'd be a
or the
foot.
iMac.
They would
Yeah,
be a
we wouldn't be
footnote
talking
in
about it right
history.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like Apple's, still one of the top three companies right now. And
Hmm.
because I believe he set it up to be that way. And they've been kind of, they have had improvements, post Steve Jobs, like their the processors they've created, and AirPods is
Hmm.
one of the big wins. But a lot of it, they've just been kind of going on with a slightly improving. I guess how much can you improve a laptop? I guess the software, but like the iPhone, it's like still been kind of the same. And the new like big products they've kind of tried, maybe haven't really taken off. Like they're impressive. Like the Vision Pro is one I think of, which I've never used one before. I know you can go into like a store and try one out, but that was I feel like that's one of the biggest like post jobs products that hasn't taken off. You don't really hear about anymore for one reason or another. And then they had a card that they were working on for like 10 years, and they scratched that, and that's not a
Hmm.
thing. So it seems like the products that they have, they still do a great job at making them and improving them.
Yeah.
But I feel like they've almost been coasting for the last decade or so on those existing products.
Yeah, I think that's right. Uh, I want to give, a big shout out to all of the engineers that have,
Hmm.
pulled their weight at Apple. I know a number of them. They're great people. They're great
That's
engineers.
awesome.
But you gotta have someone who is getting all those people pulling in the same direction
Hmm.
and towards a clear, definable goal. That will result in a great product. And you don't, you put 10,000 engineers in a room, that doesn't happen by accident. Right? That's that leadership quality. Steve didn't have the technical skill to do all of the things that were required to make the iPhone, but he knew his people could do what was needed,
Yeah.
and he got them to do it, and he guided that, these products. So all it's interesting because what's been on my mind lately is that there's a lot of, um, let's just state for the record that Microsoft has been coasting for 40 years.
Yep.
So let's not
Very
be too
fair
hard
point.
about on Apple. And I mean, Microsoft doesn't even know what to do from one day to the next. They're trying to cram AI into everything. Their last, four software updates have been full of crashes. It's just, it's just abysmal. They're not even doing the maintenance and incremental improvement right. Um,
I don't think I've touched a Windows machine in 2 years, thankfully. I try to stay away from them because, and that's not to try to be like, oh, Windows sucks, operating system war or whatever, but like, I just hear nothing but bad things. And
they're
like,
making it harder to use. They're interfering with what people want to do with computers.
yeah.
And their only focus is how can we extract more money out of these people,
Hmm.
as opposed to how do we give a great experience and make a product they'll want to buy again next time. And um, I think there's a big opportunity, right, in the market. um, where is the next, somewhere out there is the next Steve Jobs, who can see 5 years ahead and has the resources to drag the whole the rest of the world to that vision and change things again, right? And I there's a lot of areas that could use that kind of revolution in technology, and I'm looking forward to one of you doing it.
Somebody listening, yes, please.
Yes, please.
Be exciting
We
to
we
see.
need you.
Maybe you're working on it already. Give us new things to talk about on this show, please.
Give us excellent products with vision.
Yes. Oh, looking forward to that. Let's see. Is there anything else we want to touch on about Apple before we move on to the outro? Any predictions for the next 50 years? What do you got any ideas what the next big thing Apple might come out with? Are they gonna go back to the car? Are they gonna have the Apple spaceship? Like,
Um, I don't know, and I these are very difficult questions to answer. And my predictive accuracy over the last some decades is actually quite poor.
oh, that's the fun part about it because you gotta go back and make fun of yourself.
What who can predict the great products? Well, science fiction writers do
That's true. Yeah, they
sometimes.
have a pretty good accuracy.
Right, it eventually happens. Like the iPad, the tablets. They were walking around on Star Trek: The Next Generation with those.
Yeah, they look almost exactly the same. Like I'll see that. I'll put an episode on. Like
Yep.
that's an iPad he has
And the
in
and the cell phones.
1992.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that was just saying. Yeah, I
Yeah.
had the same reaction.
And the Motorola flip phones were I learned recently intentionally modeled after the original series Star Trek communicators, where the lid flips up. Um, so there's that. Maybe we're gonna have personal AI assistants that we carry around in our pocket. Um, is that is that a revolutionary technology in the
I'm like,
same
how
in
do
the
they put
same
the
sense?
Apple Touch on that too? Like, I feel like there's like, I don't know. A lot of times the Apple, it's hard to predict, right?
I don't know if I knew. Um,
I guess you
well,
would.
I'd probably be out there doing it and making a billion or
Yeah,
two
you'd be on a
dollars.
yacht somewhere, off the coast of the Caribbean.
Um,
Cool. Well, I know they. It seems like there's like rumors going around about the current CEO, like Tim Cook. Like, is he, looking to finish up this year? Is he not? But he's getting up there, in
mhm.
age. He'll probably want to retire. So I could definitely see like once you have a new CEO come on, they kind of want to deliver something like, hey, I'm here now, and this is what I'm in charge of. This is what I'm releasing. So I could see something new, something different come out in the next 5 years or so. But also, who knows when you're predicting? So we will see. And there's a lot. We'll see what happens in the next 50 years of Apple. And see what they have a whole another 50 years to make all kinds of new history. And I don't know if either of us are still around and 50. If this world is still around, if we don't, the world doesn't blow up.
Right. I'm
I'm
also
not. I'm
waiting
going
for
to.
the immortality pill. So someone
Yes,
needs to
that.
get working on that too.
Yeah, so we can all go see Apple at 100. That'll be the next great product of theirs. Well, alrighty. Well, that covers it for Artemis and Apple II. I suppose we can go ahead and go into the outro part of the podcast. Well, we've been talking about tech recommendations that we've been using that we want to tell you folks about. Yeah, I'll start with mine. So mine's just sticking with the Apple, theme today. I always recommend like to even just to celebrate Apple's 50th birthday, go back if you have an old Apple product, whether it be like an old iPhone, an old iPod Nano, Macintosh, an Apple II, even if it's with an Apple II emulator, get you a very close experience, the real thing. Go back and play around with it a little bit and just, let it take you back to what it was like using that product and how you felt. A lot of people have good feelings about those products. Like I want to get my old iPod and just shuffling around there with the spin wheel and like have that feeling again. And iPod Nano, I think, yeah, the first generation iPod Nano, I'm pretty sure was my first Apple. Anything I had was an iPod, and I just remember wanting one for like years. I finally got it, and it was just so fun just to have that iPod, that gadget, and just to look at it and play and appreciate it. And I still have that around here somewhere, and every few years I'll pick it up or so, or even just go back and use like a Macintosh, which was before my time, original Macintosh behind me, and still go around and play on it. And it's like a time machine. It's like stepping back into a different era and being able to be in that era and use a computer from that time. It's something I love doing. Video games, it's similar like that. So that's my tech recommendation. Go play around with either some old Apple technology. If you don't have anything Apple, just go play around with any old tech and bring yourself to another time.
Amen. Yeah, I'll second that. And I'll throw in a couple weeks ago I bought a product called One ROM. So ROM is, basically storage in a computer chip. It's not flash. It's more similar to RAM, but it's permanent for those who are mid-level tech or below. So anyway, these old computers always have some kind of ROM in them for the boot up code. And a lot of the early 80s computers, every computer had the basic language built in, and that would live in a ROM. So I was doing some hacking on my Apple IIgs here the last couple weeks, and I needed to know some information about uh, what the power on state of the machine was before the regular Apple II ROM took over and changed all the settings. So I wrote basically a custom ROM and burned it onto one ROM. And one ROM's a Raspberry Pi, basically, that's been
Okay,
set up to emulate a ROM chip. Uh, and
interesting.
you just connect to it via USB. They've got a little utility program. You download your ROM image into it, and then if it just goes right into your motherboard and you're running your custom code. So if you're one of those folks that's interested in tinkering with old systems or really pushing the envelope, that's sort of a really cool way to do it versus burning a EEPROM and uh, going through that whole erase, which is it like takes 10 or 15 minutes, erase program, remove it, insert it kind of cycle. This is way easier to just connect the USB cable while it's in the computer and reprogram the ROM, and away you go.
Very cool. Interesting. This is the first time hearing about that. I'm gonna have to look into that and see some videos or something. Or there it is. Very cool. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. And then we'll step into the this day in tech history before we close out. So this episode will be going live on April 24th. Yeah, April 24th. I almost said 1984. That's when this thing happened. It's not going live, 40 years before. So yeah, April 24th, 1984, 41 years ago, the Apple IIc was released. So the Apple IIc was I believe like the Apple IIe, but just a much smaller and compact version of it. They called it more portable, but I'm not really sure how portable it is because you still need to connect a monitor to it and like plug it into a power source. At least like if you buy it from like the store. But I saw later that they actually did have like accessories. Like they had an actual
Hmm.
like LCD screen you could attach to it.
Yeah.
And then that at that point, that's like okay, that's almost like a very early laptop because it has a flat bottom and this little LCD panel that had like no backlight or anything. You'd have to hold like a flashlight up to it probably to be able to use
Right.
it. But it's still
It
really
was
cool.
it was
Yeah.
intended, yeah, for use in a well lit environment. Those are those are very rare to
Mm-hmm.
unobtainium. Super cool product. I don't think they sold a whole lot of them at the time. At the time, the biggest thing for me, aside from monochrome, was the aspect ratio was funky. So it
Mm-hmm.
was half.
Oh yeah.
It was sort of half the normal aspect ratio vertically.
Right.
Um, it was still usable for um, that sort of thing. It had a carrying handle. It had a little swing out carrying handle on the back of it.
I love hardware with a carrying handle. Let's see, there's two behind me right now. The Macintosh has ones on the back, and the GameCube. You can
Yep.
see the GameCube one right there. Something about handles, I love them on hardware.
And the 2C's monitor, the normal monitor they sold with it, was relatively small.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they sold a carrying case where you could slide the 2C and I believe
Where
the small monitor into it.
okay, so it's portable that way. You
And
can put it in a bag and take it with you.
I
Or
could
is
be
it
wrong about the monitor. Maybe it was just for the 2C. But of course, you could plug these things into any old television
right?
uh,
Yeah.
or monochrome monitor, and it was, let's say, it was luggable. That was a term used for not quite portable PCs in the 80s, so we can apply that to the
I think I
2C.
even saw that some like battery accessories where you can get it running, just like not even plugged into anything. And
Yeah, some folks are have done interesting things with yeah, like internal battery packs.
mhm.
The really interesting thing about the 2C was it integrated all of the normal sort of peripherals you would want. Like it had built-in serial ports. It had built-in floppy drive controller. It had a built-in floppy drive. Had a
Cool.
built-in mouse. Had a built-in mouse port. So it was not expandable except
Mhm.
through external devices, but it was everything most people wanted in an Apple IIe. So um, you see that in the Macintosh behind you as well, right? Steve really wanted um, people to be able to take it out of the box and turn it on and use it.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So the Apple 2C, was that the last Apple II product they made, or was that
No,
before the 2E? That was like,
no, no. It was 2E. Uh,
mm-hmm.
2E enhanced with basically upgraded CPU
The
and
2EE.
well, yeah. So that
Yeah.
yeah, we laugh about that. It was the two enhanced. So
Mm-hmm.
and then the 2C came out, uh,
Gotcha.
and then the GS, and then the 2C plus.
Mm.
Uh, the
Okay, that's what I
last
was thinking. Yeah.
yeah, they canceled everything except for the Apple IIe, which they continued manufacturing until 1993.
Yeah, I saw that somewhere that they made those Apple IIs for a while, like longer than you expect, and I guess that just shows the staying power of like a good system.
Yeah, that's and the primary customer at that point was schools. They wanted their Apple
Yeah.
IIes. They had all this, Oregon Trail, et cetera, software, and
Mm-hmm.
they kept buying them until, it just didn't make sense to anymore.
Yep. Already, I'd like to get. I want to get the whole line Apple IIs and just have like a little tech museum behind me. But we'll see. They get harder and harder to find these days, and when you do find them, the people getting rid of them are probably collectors already, so they know what they're.
Yeah, I know some people that deal with the Apple II series, especially, and aren't greedy about it. So let me know when you're ready to take the plunge.
Yeah, totally. Especially if you see any like reasonable deals, send them my way, and I'll ask my fiance very nicely for permission to buy a 4-deal computer. She's like, "Do you need
I
another one?"
she must be on to you and your predilections at this point.
No, I mean she's amazing. Like she actually found this Macintosh for me
Yeah.
for I think it was my birthday or so. She's a great supporter, but she's also like space some time in between those purchases.
Yes. Fair enough.
Alrighty, well, that's the show. Thank you so much for listening to the Thinking in Tech podcast. Again, if you enjoy the show, please make sure to follow us on your podcast service of choice and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're watching us on there. If you are on there, we appreciate a like button to help get the word out about the podcast and spread it out to as many potential viewers who would enjoy us as possible. And it's also just how we know that people like what we're doing and enjoy watching, and help us discover new listeners. And if you're someone who might be interested appearing on the show as a guest, feel free to email us at thinkingandtechpod@gmail.com. We'd love to have you on. And just finally, the views expressed in this podcast are completely of our own. They do not reflect or represent the views of any past, current, or future employers. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Ciao.